Hello, we're out here at Longleaf Pine Preserve in Volusia County. My name is Charity and
I'm Chad.
And we're out here to demonstrate how to do a line transect survey.
Beautiful day.
It is. So right now we're using 100-foot tape, and Chad is taking it all the way out 100 feet away. But normally when you're doing research, you typically would use the metric system, so you would have a meter tape. But for our purposes, you can use whatever you have available. Now we're going to drop this line nice and straight as we can get it. And then if you don't happen to have a tape, pacing is also an option. So Chad is going to pace back. Now, before he started pacing, a good idea is to mark the spot you started from with, say, a stick or a flag or whatever you have available. And that way you can remember exactly where you started pacing. And then you continue pacing until you get to your predetermined length, distance, and then you would mark off the other end with something else, an additional stick.
32 steps.
And once you've done that, you have your nice straight line, or you have your distance laid out, you would then go along that line.
Yeah, basically count everything that you see within that area. So depending on what you're looking for, in this case we're going to go into a much more challenging habitat, this scrub habitat, and look for gopher tortoises. And so we wanted to show you here, it's nice and flat and easy to look, but just walk the line. As you walk the line, anything that you can see within your scope, your field of vision, you're going to count depending on what you're monitoring for. Again, in this case, we're going to set up and show you how we would monitor for gopher tortoises.
So now we're going to head into some scrub habitat, and our goal is to do a line transect survey for gopher tortoises. Now, if we were doing this for mammals, we would probably not be dressed as we are. We would have probably put on some camouflage, and we would certainly want to be quiet as we went in there so that we did not frighten anything away. But in our case, since we're doing gopher tortoises, we're not as concerned about actually seeing the gopher tortoise as we certainly hope to. But if we don't, that's okay. We're more looking for burrows and sort of indicators that we've had gopher tortoises. So you make sure you bring your water when you go on into the areas like this, and you want to bring some tape. Tape is helpful because you can use that tape to mark off where you're starting and where you're stopping, and we'll talk more about that in there.
So in order to start, we want it to be random. We don't want to just use our path of least resistance and just take a trail and go down there, because we're doing the same thing every time. It's not really a random way to look at where wildlife is occurring. So lots of different ways that we can randomize this. We could actually run GPS points and then randomly generate a GPS point, and that is our starting point. In this case, we're going to take a pine cone, and we're going to just kind of walk back a little bit to our pine cone and just toss in any one direction, and then we're going to have to find this pine cone. Then we're going to mark it, and then we're going to start our transect. Alright, so now that we found our pine cone and our random spot that we threw in here, we want to go ahead and mark our starting point with some flagging tape, and then we want to run our tape like we showed you out there. So we've run a straight line transect, and then we've marked the end point too. So now in this case, we're going to, like Charity was explaining, we're going to monitor for gopher tortoise burrows, and if we see a gopher tortoise, that would be awesome too. So Charity and I are going to walk this line, and whatever we can find, we're going to go ahead and discuss. Alright, so perfect. So again, this is a great habitat for gopher tortoises, scrub habitat, sandy, well-drained soils, lots of low vegetation. And so here we have a nice burrow. Now, this burrow, just by the looks of it right now, we don't see a well-defined apron, a flat spot where the animal is hanging out, sunning, basking for that sun. So we would, for the most part, classify this as an inactive burrow. And potentially even an abandoned burrow. It's hard to say, but usually when they're abandoned, they're really kind of covered up and you can barely tell. In this case, I would say it's more inactive. The hole is still present, the apron is gone. So we're going to continue on and see what else we find.
Let's see.
beautiful day to be out here monitoring.
Sure is. Looking around, I'm not seeing anything so far. I'm not going to be able to get through there. We'll have to go around a little bit.
Okay. So this is the challenge, of course, when you're out and scrub habitat is relatively easy to get around in, but it can be thick in certain areas, and that's the part we have to make sure we get back to our line of transects and look through.
Over on the other side. I mean, we could certainly miss one easily if it was underneath some of this brush.
Ooh, that might be something up there.
Let's get back over to our line here. Oh! Yeah, this looks like a burrow right here. What do you think, Chad? This one looks like it might be active. Look at this nice
Sure
green
does.
apron.
Yeah, this looks a lot different than that first one. So yeah, it looks like we have a nice smoothed out area. The apron's not as flat, but and I don't think yet. Do you see anything down there at all, Charity?
I see some tracks going in,
Okay.
some lines.
And so you have all this really nice fine sand, a great spot to check out tracks like Charity said. Gopher tortoise burrows, as many of you probably know, threatened species, home of lots of commensals. Their burrow system is great for lots of commensals, other organisms that share that burrow system, and these tracks can help tell us whether it's active or not.
So what do you think those tracks are, Chad? These lines?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe some little some scrub lizards that may be
Yeah.
in there. Gopher frogs, we have snakes, we have all kinds of insects, spiders that like to hang out in there.
There's almost looks like there's some little tracks here too. Down.
Oh, yep.
All right, I think we're at the end of our tape too.
Yep, I think we are. So you can see that we marked the end of our tape as well, right here with this flag. And again, we found two burrow systems. One we think is active and one that is inactive. And so if we randomly do this and throw a lot of these lines out there, we can come back here year after year, season after season, and start determining the health of this gopher tortoise population in the scrub habitat.